What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets. My name is Ansel Linner, and happy Monday. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Monday is my fundamentals report day, so every Monday I send out my free weekly newsletter from bitcoinandmarkets.com, and then I like to go over it, talk through it. It's a larger newsletter. Some people do daily, quick takes. I like to do one big newsletter every week, and you guys can sign up for that over on bitcoinandmarkets.com. Let's just jump right into the website. So here you can go here, sign up for free notifications of all the stuff I post. I have different member stuff going on. Market Pro, that's the professional tier, the technical analysis, price targets, deep dive into that. We also have a price competition or a forecast competition every month. I just recently put that out for July's forecast. So if you want to go to bitcoinandmarkets.com, become a paid member, you can join that monthly forecasting competition. And the closest person to the price at the end of the month, the closing price, then you win $20 in sats over the Lightning Network. So it's kind of a fun way to build the community. All right, so you can see here, fundamentals report 248. Before I jump into it, I just want to say happy 4th of July. I won't be live streaming tomorrow, so hope you guys can spend some time with your friends and family. Be safe. This is one of the most dangerous holidays in the United States, but it's pretty easy to stay safe if you just use some common sense. Okay, so let's get into the fundamentals report number 248, starting with the meme. And I like this. I saw this from Swan Bitcoin, and sorry, I had a sinking feeling I was not broadcasting, but I'm all good. Okay, so the first step is the hardest, and they put out like a meme of the day. This is by the BTC therapist or the Bitcoin therapist. And yeah, buy Bitcoin is the first step, then self-custody, cold storage. I wouldn't say educate. Well, I guess you educating other people. Yes, that's where I would put that step. But right at the beginning, I would say, learn a little bit, then buy Bitcoin. You always want to buy Bitcoin at the level of your understanding of Bitcoin. And I can't remember who I heard that from first, but it was a long time ago. And I think that's a very, very good way to put it. Just buy as much Bitcoin as you understand it. So don't miss out on buying the first couple $100, buy in and figure out how to self-custody, how to cold storage, run a node. And as you learn more and more, you keep dipping your toe in a little deeper and deeper. I think that's just great advice. Great meme, great way to start off the newsletter. So up front, snapshot of Bitcoin. As I was going through the news and going through the price today, the more I went through, the more I'm pretty convinced that we're going to have a breakout here pretty soon. So the weekly trend, I said consolidate and then break out. Media sentiment is slightly positive. Network traffic is medium. It's come down quite a bit in the last week. We'll go over all of that. Mining industry is stable. I didn't put strong this week because they continue to sell some Bitcoins, and we're going to take a look at that chart and see how much they're selling. Price section is weekly price 31,027 at time of writing. That's almost $1,000 higher than the last report. Market cap is over now 600 billion. And Satoshis per dollar is 3,222. One Finny, that's 1/10,000th of a Bitcoin, is $3.10. Mining sector, like I said, is stable, and I forgot to change this color. This should be red. That is a negative 3.25% on the last adjustment last week that it went down. However, it is estimated the difficulty to increase by 2.5% in a week from now. Mempool is down to 113. Remember, it's been around 200 megabytes for a long time, according to mempool.space. So this is about a 50% reduction, or maybe a 40% reduction in the mempool. We'll take a look at that chart here in a minute. Fees for the next block, roughly, or to get your transaction in the next block, is a little bit over $1. Median fee is a little bit over $1. Nothing too significant to report there. Now, Lightning Network, I do track this. I started tracking this about, I don't know, has it been 6 months now? And this really hasn't moved all that much. It seems like it's either 0.1% up or 0.1% down on capacity, kind of maybe trending a little bit more down over the last 6 months than up. Channels continues to fall almost every single week, down to 69,000 channels now. So I don't know. I think that the Lightning Network is a great response for scalability. It is a great tool. All right. But it takes a long time to figure out exactly how to use that tool. And it's not going to be, man, I think the Lightning Network might be a great application for like layer 3, because being that it has to peg into the base chain for every single channel and rebalancing transactions and all these other stuff. Yes, there's a lot of new tools coming out, but Lightning Network has this UTXO limitation. And so if we could, hopefully in the future, we'll continue to improve that, or the developers will continue to improve that, and they will come up with something, maybe making Lightning on Liquid, or I think you can already do that, but something like that could be the killer app for Lightning. But as it stands right now, it's great. It works, and it's fun to think about the applications in the future of it, but it's hard to see how we get from here to a billion users on Lightning Network. I don't think it can support a billion users right now. As you can see, it's barely supporting 70,000 channels. So we got to figure this out. Okay, in case you missed it, this is all the stuff I put out this last week, a couple podcast versions, Market Pro, and the Fed Watch. All right, let's go down to headlines. Now, as I was writing this on headlines, we had this Alliance Bernstein. They are a high net worth broker out of Nashville, I believe, and they manage nearly $1 trillion in assets. And they had a research report that came out and said they think that it's highly likely that, that the chances of a Bitcoin spot ETF getting approved is fairly high, quote, fairly high. So I wanted to put that in at the top just as breaking news. It's not super relevant, but it is just another thing that these high net worth individuals, I mean, these are brokers for people where their opinion matters, right, to a lot of money. And they are thinking that it's fairly high. So anyway, let's continue. Over the weekend, there was also a rumor that Gary Gensler, here, I'm going to zoom in to make sure you guys can see this. Over the weekend, there was a rumor that Gary Gensler had resigned because of some improprieties. And it was non-specific. It was kind of like supposed to be hush-hush under the table. And I immediately thought that it was some dreamed up thing by a crypto bro that just got picked up as, citing sources, quote unquote sources, and people ran with it because, anything with the SEC and Gensler and this type of news is going to get a lot of clicks. But it turns out that people have done some data mining on the initial article, and they think that it was written pretty much by someone used, Chat GPT to write an article about this, and it is completely false. So, yeah, I just had to put that in the report that this resignation is not, he's not going anywhere. So the SEC says spot Bitcoin ETF filings are inadequate. We covered this pretty heavily on Friday's live stream. This was breaking news on Friday, but there are some updates now. Fidelity has refiled already, along with Invesco, VanEck, 21 Shares, and WisdomTree. All four of these guys have refiled already. I think they refiled the same day. So what day was Friday? The 30th. So they refiled by end of day on Friday to include Coinbase as their exchange. So all five of these companies that have now refiled after the SEC said that it was inadequate, they are using Coinbase. This is very interesting because if you remember from my Friday live stream, I'm thinking that BlackRock has some sort of exclusivity agreement with Coinbase. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's not exclusive agreement, but it's like, hey, we're going to use you. We want to have first dibs, and if you do that, we'll put in a good word with you with the SEC, something like that. Okay, so BlackRock has not refiled yet, as of the time of writing this, that I could find any breaking news on this, but they should be refiling in short order, as well as all the others that are waiting. I think there's maybe like 3 or 4 others that have not refiled with Coinbase as their Bitcoin exchange. So we are going to wait and watch and see what happens with this. ETF filings, here's the lineup. Actually, I just included this. I found this from Bloomberg, and it just shows their initial filing date. You see BlackRock filed on the 15th, and then 16, 20, 20, 21, 29. Fidelity brought up the rear. So this is interesting. Fidelity filed on the 29th, which was Thursday. And then Friday, it got kicked back, right, by the SEC. And then Friday night, they refile with new verbiage for their surveillance sharing agreement. So Fidelity really had a fast turnaround on here from filing to refiling, where BlackRock was the first kind of in this group in June. ARK 21 shares, they're up in April. But BlackRock was the first, and they still have not refiled. So very interesting how this is turning out. Of course, I'll keep you updated. You guys can join the Telegram, t.me/Bitcoin and markets. People will keep us updated in there as well. But yeah, so let's move on. USDC, this is Circle's stablecoin. They continue to bleed out. I think this is just interesting. I wanted to update you guys on this. So we typically measure the success of a US dollar stablecoin by its market cap. Tether continues to grow as USDC continues to slide. For me, it's actually kind of satisfying because I think that Circle and some of their backers, they were really pushing the Tether FUD. It might even have originated from USDC. Jeremy Allaire is an enemy of Bitcoin. He's the CEO of Circle. I think it was like 2014 or 15. He had a rage quit of Bitcoin and said Bitcoin had failed. This was back when the scaling debate was going on and all of that. Jeremy Allaire did not like what was happening, probably because he couldn't corrupt Bitcoin. And so he left and he said Bitcoin was a failed project. Of course, he came back later with Circle again and launched the stablecoin. And I think that stablecoin, or I think that USDC is really involved with, what do I say here? That USDC was the preferred stablecoin by Silicon Valley pump and dump VCs. I think Jeremy Allaire got in. He's kind of fits in that kind of clique, and so this is really a bad sign for Silicon Valley, like the pump and dump crypto scams, and it's a bad sign for USDC. So you can see on the chart here, it has been continuing to be dumped, basically redeemed, and almost it looks like turned directly into Tether. Don't know exactly the process for that, but yeah, that is what we're seeing. And I thought it was interesting too, because before February, the third week of February 2022, we saw this direct correlation between Tether and USDC. But then after that point, immediately we saw indirect correlation. So Tether continued to go up into February and March, while USDC slid down. Their market cap slid. And that's way before Celsius. It's way before Terra Luna. It's way before FTX. So there's something else going on here. And one thing I did note that happened pretty much this exact week was the Ukraine invasion. I don't know how that would factor in here, but maybe there were some scams going on, some wash trading, and some market manipulation that once the invasion in Ukraine kicked off, maybe they moved on to different types of scams, maybe pumping, trying to find out different ways to launder money than through NFTs. But anyway, okay, I just thought that was interesting. And it also tells me that the crypto side of, like, well, I guess crypto frauds are not coming back anytime soon. They continue to bleed out and go lower. Like USDC is almost like the lifeblood of that part of the fraud industry. And if it continues to sell off like this, there's just not enough liquidity to pump these things. And so this is a good sign. Okay, let's get into macro headlines. So if you guys are new to my content, I do Bitcoin and macro. I have a degree in economics, background in military, 10 years in intelligence and mission planning. And so I have, and of course, a 10-year experience now in Bitcoin. So I have like this unique skill set or experience set that allows me to look at these different things and piece them together with how I see the future going. So what's going on in France? Of course, you guys know the riots are going on over there. They have deployed tens of thousands of police and riot police, SWAT teams. They're going in and trying to crack some skulls. There are violent riots out there. I mean, I say that it makes it looks like a literal war zone. If you've seen the videos of people driving in the streets in the morning, it literally looks like it could be Ukraine, right? Or it could be Iraq after the invasion 20 years ago. But the burning and looting is making the BLM look tame, the stuff that we had here in the United States. Remember the mainly peaceful protests that happened in the United States? This is making that look tame. I even saw a video of an IED in the streets of a major French city. I don't know if it was Paris or Lyon or something like that, but it was obvious that this car turned and these people were watching as they went past this like pile of garbage. This car turned and there was an IED right there and blew up, damaged the vehicle. And so, I mean, this is straight out of Iraq. I mean, straight out of the Middle East and tactics like that. They're bringing the IEDs from the Middle East into major French cities, which is an extremely troubling sign. But I say that I'm certain that these riots will force political change in France and rapidly. Of course, if you guys have been listening to my show, I did talk about Marine Le Pen back during the election period. And I've been watching for populism to rise in Europe. We saw this with, Meloni. Le Pen is getting favor. We saw a populist right-wing party take a majority in Sweden. Of course, you have Hungary and you have Poland having these populist right-wing tendencies, at least. And Germany now, I've been posting in the Telegram that their political map is shifting very, very rapidly. I mean, within the last 2 years, it has shifted extremely hard right. And so I think these riots could lead to very rapid political change. I think they can vote for a no confidence in Macron, and they can have snap elections, and Le Pen could be in. I mean, this could happen by the fall. I don't know exactly how many days you need for these snap elections, if it's 45 days or 90 days or something. But I mean, we could be talking by the end of the year, Macron's out, Le Pen is in. This could happen very, very rapidly. Then you would have Le Pen, Meloni teaming up. I mean, this could drastically change the politics. And I say that France is a huge part of the EU, the Eurozone, and NATO. Not to mention that they have the best military in Europe by a large margin. They are a huge swing country in Europe. And if France goes, we could see major shakeup in NATO, with the Ukraine war, with the Eurozone. I mean, everything. So we need to be watching this extremely closely. Anyway, so let's go on to more EU news. The EU is on the brink of bankruptcy, says Hungary's Orbán at the EU summit. Quote, they want to get 50 billion from the member states to give to Ukraine, while they can't even account for the money we have given them so far. They want more money from the member states so that they can pay the interest on the European Union loans. that they have previously taken out. These are loans that Poland and Hungary have not seen a single cent from so far. Yeah, the EU is withholding capital from Orban because they disagree with some of his policies. And so, like, why does he want to vote to increase the budget? This is only 2 years into a 7-year budget, and they're already out of money. The, I want to get across how bearish this is for the European economy in general. And if I'm seeing it, I guarantee you, business people in Italy, business people in France and Spain, everywhere, they're seeing this exact same thing, and they aren't going to take it. So guys, it can really pivot on a dime here. Next story up. Sweden's NATO membership is a pipe dream, Turkey says ahead of summit. So a little background, if you guys know that Sweden and Finland have applied to be in NATO. And at first Turkey said they weren't going to support them. Then Turkey flip-flopped and said, okay, we'll support. And now there's a new development. Last week in Sweden, they allowed a Quran burning protest to proceed, which took place in Stockholm, drawing about 200 people to the scene, which had police protection. All of this happening against the backdrop of Sweden desperately seeking entry into the NATO military alliance, but which Turkey has blocked since last summer. Ankara now has even more reason to resist Sweden's ascension after complaining that it allowed PKK terrorists to operate freely. So they can't get Sweden in. Do they think they're going to be able to expand it to Ukraine? That was another story that's been circulating last week. They are going to fast track Ukrainian entrance into NATO. I say there's not a chance of that. NATO summit is coming up on July 11th, I believe. I might have that wrong. It might be the 13th, but it's coming up within a week here. And this is a very, very important event, a very important timing. If Ukraine doesn't get a new huge arms package as a result of the summit, it will likely be the beginning of the end of any sort of offensive that they have going on over there. They're desperately trying to show some progress before this meeting, and we'll see. I mean, of course, Russia knows that. I don't know what Russia plans to do because they are bleeding NATO. I mean, they're bleeding their political rivals right now in Europe by continuing this. So does Russia actually want to continue this for another 6 months, another year, whatever, and just bleed NATO dry? I mean, I said, I think on Wednesday's live stream, or sorry, on Friday's live stream, that I kind of expect Germany's GDP to drop by 1 or 2% in 2023, and maybe more in 2024, maybe down -5%. I mean, this could get very ugly for Germany. And that doesn't hurt Russia. Russia's economy has actually increased since the last year. So they could want to slow roll this and not launch their own offensive before July 11th, but we'll see. We'll see how this turns out. All right, that's it for the macro news. Let's get into price. So I start off with this chart. I did post it in Telegram earlier today. The blue line is the number of addresses inflow to exchanges. And the orange is the Bitcoin price. And the pink down here is reserves held on the exchange. Now, it's kind of hard to see down here in the far right, bottom right-hand corner, but that is a new low for Bitcoin held on exchanges. This blue line is the one that they're pointing out here. The inflow to exchanges is dropping off of a cliff right now as the price is moving higher. So I say another week, another low in exchange inflows and balances. Liquidity is at an impressive low, with demand increasing, the halving coming, ETFs lining up, etc., etc. We probably are not bullish enough. And I think this was sourced from bitcoinnews.com on Twitter. Also, GBTC discount is closing. Let's pull this up so you can see the discount here in the bottom on the blue. It is coming up. I think I saw it as low as 30%, but that is a pretty rapid decline in the discount, and showing very bullish demand here for GBTC. I said the GBTC discount is closing. This is one of the most significant signs out there right now. Demand to get exposure to Bitcoin is rising fast. When this gets back positive, the risk-free trade resumes. GBTC will suck up Bitcoin and price will moon. So the way this risk-free trade, because every time I say risk-free trade, I'm sure there's some people out there like, there's no such thing as risk-free. But if there's a premium on GBTC, like say 10%, you can buy that Bitcoin at NAV, or buy that GBTC share at NAV, so at the actual spot price, not at the 10% premium, but at the spot price. And you can short GBTC at the premium. And so you lock in that differential. No matter what, you're going to be able to scalp that differential. It's just a matter of time. So it is pretty much a risk-free trade. Unless GBTC went belly up, I mean, that's, I guess, an increasing risk today, but it's pretty much a risk-free trade. And what that does, what that forces, it forces Grayscale to go out and buy more Bitcoin, create more shares, and hodl up more and more Bitcoin into GBTC. It's a one-way function. The only thing that can stop that is if the premium goes the other way, which is, something that, one reason that all of these things blew up last year, because the GBTC premium disappeared and all of these kind of risk-free traders could not continue with their business model. So there's a mismatch. The individual trades still ended up positive, but once it turned into a discount, they couldn't make new trades. And people had lent them money wanting their APR, their payment, their interest on their loans to BlockFi and stuff. But so they had all this liability and they couldn't make new risk-free trades through GBTC because the premium had gone negative, and that blew up their businesses. So it's kind of a moral hazard for the industry, but it's also a hoover. It's a vacuum for Bitcoin off of the exchanges. So anyway, just be watching that. It's also very bullish. Okay, let's take a look at the daily chart. Now I have just really simple charts here, of course, in my Market Pro newsletter for professional tier members. I go way more in depth. I think I had 22 charts this last Friday when I put out that member newsletter. But anyway, this is just a simple daily chart here, and you can see it's kind of getting ready for takeoff. That's what it looks like. Let's go down to the monthly and quarterly, because this is we just started a new quarter, we started a new month, we even started a new half year, but I did quarterly and monthly charts. Here's the quarterly chart, and this red dashed line is at 35,000, and that's at the bottom for quarterly resistance is at 35,000. That's going back to, it looks like Q2, the close of Q2 of 2021. Okay, now if we go to the monthly, very interestingly, that also is, that same close is where the resistance is for the monthly chart as well. So 35,000 is the immediate next target. And that's also where we're going to start seeing a lot of short squeezing. If we can get over that level of 35,000, we're going to see a lot of short squeezes. So, yeah, I think we can very quickly get to that point. And let me see what the price is doing right now. 31,100. We'll take a look at the chart here at the end before we close out the show today. The live chart. Mining headlines. Bitcoin miners continue to deposit to exchanges. Can price hold on? And I link to each one of these bullet points is a link usually to the story that I'm talking about here. So I've reported on this in recent weeks. The amount of Bitcoin leaving miners for exchanges is extremely high. The typical interpretation is this means miners are under extraordinary stress. They're sending coins to exchanges in desperate need for dollars/fiat. However, we see price rising and miners maintaining or adding hash rate. They are not behaving particularly stressed other than sending their Bitcoin to exchanges. I mentioned a tweet by Bob Burnett and I misspelled his last name. Sorry about that, Bob. I will fix that. I'll update that right after this. A couple weeks ago, where he pointed out that investment into mining companies has dried up. Back in 2021 and 2022, expansion was financed through debt or equity deals, and there was getting a lot of investment out there into public miners, into mining in general. And a lot of that now has been invested. They funded new facilities, they got new miners, but all of that money is kind of burned through now. So now you had to start, if it was a debt deal, you had to start servicing that debt, right? So that's one reason why you could see selling, to service the debt that was already used for expansion. Bob Burnett also says that there is no new financing available. So miners got a lot of financing in 2021, 2022, but now in 2023, there's no new financing to help service that previous debt burden or previous financing. So now they're having to sell their coins to cover the financing. I mean, I think that makes it really good sense. So it doesn't have to do anything necessarily with their revenue per hash, right? It has to do with their revenue versus their debt. And that's an important factor, obviously. But Bitcoin miners are going to have to figure this out. I don't think they were expecting to have such a dry period here in 2023 for investment into mining. So we'll have to watch to see how that shapes up. But here is the chart from that via Glassnode, and you can see that over here on the right, we've had a ton of selling from the miners. That also will keep price down slightly, but I don't think it's really affecting it all that much. Okay. More than 240% in 2023. This Bitcoin mining stock is still a screaming buy. I say Riot is getting some mainstream love. So this is an article from the Motley Fool. And if you guys are aware of that, this is pretty mainstream investment guys, like outlet, financial press outlet. And they say, thanks to groundbreaking agreement and ambition expansion plans, Riot is positioned for long-term success and poised to capitalize on the growing profitability of Bitcoin mining. And it's a big, long article. It reads like a press release from Riot, but this is interesting. I don't notice these type of mainstream positive takes on Bitcoin. So I wanted to make sure that I put this in here. All right. Bitcoin mining ETF. This is WGMI. I think it's Valkyrie, but I'm not sure. Up 210% year to date. And I put this chart in here. It's actually 213 or 214%. Huge. I mean, this is absolutely huge. This does kind of look like a rising wedge, which is a bearish pattern, or typically a bearish pattern, but we'll have to see. I mean, this is a huge deal, guys. Bitcoin mining is going to get a boost from this type of performance, people buying in, being able to sell more equity. Like if they need to, instead of selling Bitcoin, they could sell more equity and, more shares, finance their debt payments that way. They wouldn't have to sell Bitcoin. So anyway, this is a big sign of the health in the Bitcoin mining space. Okay, difficulty in hash rate. So hash rate did drop pretty significantly. I mean, the biggest drop in maybe this entire year. I didn't go back and check, but it was down 3.25% about a week ago. But since then, you can see price or hash rate has recovered significantly, not back up to all-time highs, but back up to roughly where it's been for the last couple of months. So it's stable. That's why I say that the mining sector is not necessarily strong right now, but it is definitely stable. Okay, mempool. This is the one I wanted to make sure I showed you guys because it has really come down quite dramatically in the last week. I think last the last issue of the report just showed this spike back up. And so since then, we've come down almost 50% on the mempool. Has not quite chewed through enough transactions to make it the fees to come dramatically down, but that will come. I think, I'm kind of waiting for this, how the mempool cleared. I'm waiting for that to happen again, maybe this month, but we will see. If price moons, we won't see a clear mempool, I don't think. All right. Ordinal debate. I haven't updated this in a while, but looking at the mempool, looking at the fees, looking at other things, mining, I wanted to be like, okay, well, what are the ordinals doing? Because if you guys know, ordinals and inscriptions, they are like NFTs on Bitcoin, or at least ways to mark transactions and stuff and Satoshis on Bitcoin. And there is a hot debate going on about this. I really don't care too much. I think it'll eventually go away, but let's see what I write here. So it's been several weeks since I've updated the ordinals and inscriptions. Totals have trailed off as the initial hype has run its course. This strikes me as very similar in progression to the NFT niche I should have said in general, only on a compressed timeline. And I had talked about this for many reports over a couple years of the NFT hype, just showing that, NFTs look like this. They boomed. I think they had a secondary boom like 6 months later, but they just continued to trail off, almost just like an altcoin market cap. They have this initial pump and dump surge, and then it's just a matter of trying to find a greater fool to take this off of you before it drops further, and it looks like this is what's happening to the issuance of Bitcoin ordinals. So let me blow this up. One thing I did mention is this yellow down here on the bottom chart is other. So it's not image, it's not text, not video, audio application, it's other. I don't know what that is, but if you take that away, it's even a worse picture for ordinals. They're sliding in popularity even more. And perhaps they introduced this other, whatever it is, as a way to, the next hype, the next cool thing to have. And this is going to lose its momentum as well. But anyway, I thought this was interesting. If you guys keep up with ordinals, it is just trailing down into obscurity. Okay, Lightning Network. This is the last section of the day. So Lightning Network, Jack Dorsey questions Apple's Tim Cook over Bitcoin support as Damus deplatforming looms. And I haven't followed this very much, okay? I'm not a person that tries out all of these new social media apps because I'm not really a social media person. I mean, I do Twitter and I have the community on Telegram and stuff like that. But I don't do Facebook. I don't really do LinkedIn. I don't do any of these other things. So I'm kind of like a one app person, and I'm not somebody that's going to try out a bunch of new social media, but I understand that Nostr and this Damus, and they're very popular with Bitcoiners, and they were trying to do zaps, I guess, like Bitcoin tips. And the App Store did not like this because they want you to use Apple Pay. But let's read through the quotes here. So on Tuesday, after Apple signaled to the Bitcoin-friendly social media app Damus that it would likely be kicked out of the App Store for violating the platform's terms of service, Dorsey tweeted at Apple CEO Tim Cook, quote, "Why doesn't Apple Pay support Bitcoin, Tim Cook? Damus is a decentralized social media platform that runs on the Nostr protocol, which is popular with Bitcoiners partly because most implementations of it support payments over the blockchain's Lightning Network." The blockchain's Lightning Network. Who am I quoting here? Oh, I think this was an archive link from CoinDesk, I believe. So yeah, of course they say this blockchain's Lightning Network. It's Bitcoin's Lightning Network. Nostr is an acronym for notes and other stuff transmitted by relays. I'm not super bullish on decentralized social media. Um, I'm not super bullish on decentralize all the things. That might come as a surprise to new people, but because uh, if you're a fan of Bitcoin, you think that we should all be fans of decentralization in general. I think it's good in some forms. Decentralization can be a check, and it is a spectrum. It is definitely a spectrum as well. But middlemen are not always bad, right? You hire middlemen for their expertise and their ability to do things. So middlemen aren't always bad. So decentralization is not always good, just like middlemen aren't always bad. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of times people will try to sell you on a scam because, oh, it's decentralize all the things. This is, of course, we want to decentralize this. Why wouldn't we want to decentralize X? Because we all know decentralization is good. See, that's an affinity scam. They're trying to get in with these people that think decentralization is good or efficient or something like that. Decentralization is not efficient, people. You want to have separation of labor. Separation of labor means you're going to have middlemen and things are going to have central points of failure. Decentralization is inefficient. So any decentralized social media is going to be, almost by definition, not as good. Like, not have as many features, not be have well, probably will have more uptime, but that's depending if you can connect. So it definitely won't be as quick, won't have as many features, etc. So um, I mean, there's trade-offs here. There's definitely trade-offs. And from my perspective, maybe I can tie this into talking about Twitter a little bit over the weekend as well, because they were rate limiting people. Like, now, I guess non-paid members can only see, what, 600 tweets a day or something like that. I mean, that's not very many. And paid members can see 6,000. I have not run into any of those rate limit things. I know it's kind of bad for, like, me writing this report. If I wanted to link a tweet, usually it would pull up and it would be like an anonymous person viewing Twitter, but I guess you can't do that anymore. At least they're going to have a temporary ban on that, because they're trying to get rid of some data scraping and some ways where bots are manipulating um, like censorship algorithms. And so, anyway, on Telegram, I put that long video in there from some sort of expert. I don't know who he is, but he sounded extremely up to date on this, and I was following it from different news outlets and stuff over the weekend. And it just seems that, Twitter is trying to fight against spam, and also data mining, to ways to manipulate the censorship algorithms. And so, anyway, it's very interesting what's going on. A lot of people talking about it like, oh, it's censorship. What happened to free speech? Well, like, censorship is usually targeted, right? Like, I'm going to target you specifically for censorship because I don't like what you're saying, or I don't like you, period. But if everybody is under the same constraints, then it's not technically censorship. So just like Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin is censorship resistant, it's permissionless, anybody can use it. But there's a mining fee. I don't get, what happens if you don't pay a mining fee? Well, your transaction probably will not get included in a block. You probably won't be able to take part in the Bitcoin network if you don't pay the fee. It's the same, and no one would say that Bitcoin is trying to censor people. No, there's some cost to these things. There's trade-offs in life. Nothing is free. Free speech is not free. Your rights and freedoms are not free. They take a lot to maintain them. So people bitching about censorship all day long, they don't know what it goes on, what's involved with protecting your own rights. So anyway, I could go on for days and days about that. Let me just check the scroll up here to the top. Bitcoin fundamentals report. Make sure you go to bitcoinandmarkets.com and subscribe. Let's take a look at the live chart here. Live Bitcoin chart, 21,287. Guys, it's feeling very, very bubbly. Let's go down to the hour. Yeah, it's looking bubbly. Let's see. Maybe by the end of the day, we will be above this red zone. And for those that don't know, that don't follow my content very often, is this red zone comes back all the way back from end of 2022 into 2021. Those bottoms, the bottoms in mid 2021, this kind of ledge in price right before Celsius blew up in 2022. And then recently it was resistance. And now we're breaking up above that. Also, let me bring up the volume by price. This is something that people don't look at all that often. I look at it on my Market Pro newsletter. But here you can see this is the volume that's happened at all of these different prices. Okay. And there is this bulge that goes all the way up to 39,000. That means that there's been a lot of price action that's happened in that zone. That's usually can act as resistance because it's important for each individual that has transacted at that kind of level. That means that there was something there that made people pay attention at that point and do an exchange or do market activity at that price point. So most likely that will happen in the future. But I want to point out, how long has it been since that volume was created? Let's look. From here, it's been, we're going back 62 weeks. 62 weeks since there was any price action. And if we want to know where most of that comes from, it comes from back here, 104 weeks. So 2 years was where this volume that is above us came from. I don't think it's going to be all that full of resistance above this. I really do think that we can zip right through this all the way up to my higher targets. So anyways, that's the live Bitcoin price chart. Let's go back down to the daily. And that's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you for joining me. My name is Ansel Lindner. Check out bitcoinandmarkets.com. Make sure you're subscribed to the free weekly newsletter. There's all sorts of different ways you can support my content over there. Remember, we also have the Bitcoin forecast competition where you forecast the price at the end of the month, each month. That's for paid members over there on bitcoinandmarkets.com. I appreciate everybody that supports because this is a listener-supported podcast. All right. That's going to do it for today, guys. Happy 4th of July. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.